Hey guys, sadly I am back and with a new video. As mini painters, we are handicapped with choice. What weapon should I give this unit? Should I glue this goblin to the transparent base it came with, or should I use the nice beveled ones instead? Gray primer, black primer, white primer. Are you high right now? You ever get nervous? And sometimes you just want to put paint on your freaking guys and use them. Choosing color schemes doesn't have to be hard. All you need to do is be a little inspired. You're watching Apollo Geist. So color schemes, especially in the context of games like 40k, tends to be pretty important. Your army or squad are kind of like a sports team, or in the case of Blood Bowl, literally a sports team. The color scheme not only unifies them and enables recognition, it also symbolically speaks to what your army represents. For example, my Plague Marines are painted white instead of the traditional green. No philosophical reason, I just think white as an evil color is grossly underrated, and it contrasts really well with the disgusting zhush they're covered in, like a nasty porcelain toilet. But someone might paint their Plague Marines red because it evokes diseases like Ebola or the Rage virus from 28 Days Later. And to be clear, there's nothing wrong with painting models and their canon colors. To the contrary, I think there's something really virtuous about holding yourself to a pre-existing standard and fulfilling it to the best of your ability. But some of us are classic contrarians who don't like the canon colors or have their own vision of them to fulfill. That said, what happens if you don't like the de facto color scheme of a D&D monster or 40k army, but can't think of anything interesting to replace it with? I'm gonna offer you either a stupidly simple or simply stupid answer. Steal it. Yeah, that's it. Take a color scheme from something you like, break it down into the colors it's made of, and then apply it to those models. That sounds obvious, but you'd be surprised how rarely it occurs to people. You don't have to restrain yourself to war games or canon colors. You can go beyond the bounds of the setting and just steal shit from other things you like. Want to paint your dragon in Mothra's colors? Yeah, that sounds cool as hell. Go even further. Oh, this really chic orange vacuum cleaner is giving you ideas for your Dark Eldar? Shit, go for it. You're gonna base your Necron army's colors off the Kramer Laugh Factory incident? Fuck, man, you bought them, not me. If a scheme sticks out to you from somewhere else, even if it's from something someone else made, make it your own. I call it stealing in a joking way, but this really isn't something you need to be precious about. Those who watch anime might have seen the anime Quadruple S Gridman, but a lot of people don't know that the designers shamelessly, and I mean shamelessly, copied the color schemes and designs from really specific Transformers toys. The professionals you look up to do this too, and they do it with love. It's called homage, and not something you should ever be afraid of. Now, of course, it doesn't hurt to be honest about your inspirations, especially when they come from the community and you're sharing your work online. While most mini painters probably won't grumble if you copy their army color schemes verbatim, a lot of them will definitely appreciate it if you at least credit them. Small things, you know? I'll show you some examples. These are some Chaos Cultists. I had Gurren log on the brain, so I painted them using the color scheme of Lazengon, fixating on the pink face and translating that onto the helmets. The little bits of dark turquoise, red, and yellow pop really nice against the black. Is this a lore-friendly color scheme? No, but it's striking and I don't see anyone who's painted these guys like it. It isn't just a matter of what colors you use, but how they're used and where, and taking inspiration from others is a great way to figure that out. So, we're gonna paint some Tau, and I'm gonna show you 3 color schemes I brazenly stole from, and how I figured out how to do them. The first I knew for sure would work because it's already so close to the classic mustard Tau color scheme. Gundam Reckingista NG, despite being an incomprehensible mess, has some of my favorite mecha designs ever, one of them being the GH001 Grimoire designed by Ippei Gyobu. You can tell immediately what I mean right down to the white helmet. I'm going to ignore the standard Tau colors though and try to assign the Grimoire's color placement as analogously to the model as I can. But first, let's do some digibashing. Digibashing is a term used in the toy community to describe digital mock-ups of hypothetical recolors or custom paint jobs. They're perfect for mini painting in getting a rough idea for how your models will look with the color scheme of choice. Just find a suitable image. This one is from Den of Imagination, huge credit to them. Pop it to your image editing program of choice, make it grayscale, and color over it with a transparent layer. One app I've heard really good things about that I haven't tried yet is called ImpCat, and it's apparently designed to do this exact thing, so maybe check it out. For the Grimoire color scheme, I tried to color everything as analogously as possible. So for example, the white head, sand yellow torso, etc. It's a pretty simple set of colors, so it didn't take long. The result looks pretty cool, close enough to standard Tau colors while doing its own thing. If you're happy with this result right from the outset, great, get to painting. Personally, I would like to go a little bit further and add my own touches. First of all, I'd like there to be a bit more color in color going on. So I'm going to add some stripes and make the gun more interesting. Second, I really believe the pink is the unsung hero here, so I want to make some excuses to put that in more areas. I updated the color scheme to better reflect these changes, and yeah, now we're cooking. While we're locking in on that one, let's move on to color scheme number 2. Eva Unit 01 is one of the most iconic mechas of all time with an equally unique color scheme. Side note, G-Quax looks fucking sick, bro. This color scheme has for sure been done on Tau before by other people, but it's such a striking example I think it's worth doing. This mecha has a few more colors than the Grimoire, and they're placed way more deliberately, so let's try doing what we did before. And yeah, looks cool. I will say this is sort of the opposite of the Grimoire, where I think there's a little too much going on. Eva 01 is a lanky nightmare machine, and the Tau are stocky blueberry people, so naturally it's not going to instantly work. The play I think here is to downplay anything that isn't purple and green without eliminating them entirely. I did this by turning the oranges and periwinkles into stripes and lines. Weapons are also a nice place for you to offload the accent colors, giving them a greater emphasis there so it stands out from the body while still tying into it. For the third example, I was kind of stumped for a minute. I started with Cyclonus from Transformers Armada as a sort of sure, why not choice, but okay, let's try tweaking it like before. I don't know about this. These colors just don't work in this character, and that's okay. It's important to include this just so you guys know this is a process of trial and error. Not every color scheme will look great on a specific character or mini, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have a place somewhere else. Bide your time, Cyclonus. One day you'll get your flowers. Okay, let's just move away from the mechas for a second. One color scheme that's been sticking with me lately is contrasting reds and greens, and one that quickly comes to mind is red from Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. Like the Grimoire, this also follows that striking standalone color for the head motif, so I thought it'd be fun to try here. No preliminary layouts here. I knew pretty quickly that I wanted the neon yellow as a recurring accent color like the pink on the Grimoire. These barefoot freaks don't have shoes for me to color, so I just transferred the shoe color scheme onto the gun. This one might be controversial, but I really like it. Okay, now that we've got our 3 potential color schemes for our squad locked down, let's get to painting. So to preface, I'm not going to spend a tremendous amount of time describing every step here. These were pretty slapdash paint jobs functioning as proof of concept. Starting with the Grimoire Tau, I began by mixing up a sandy yellow color close to the Grimoire's line art, then airbrushed it on. I used a very dark, nearly black brown to hit the shoulders and other armor bits. To ensure a fairly opaque white, I blocked out the head in gray and then added more and more white to each layer. While I don't usually bother with washes anymore, I always keep some on hand for cases like this where I want to save some time. Recently, I discovered these washes from Tattered Angels. These are washes meant for wood staining I found in the craft store, but thinned down with some water and they work great. Good value too. I got these for about $2.50 a bottle, and they have about 4 times the amount of wash than your usual mini paint bottle. Just note that some of them contain mica flakes, so avoid those ones if you see them. Like I mentioned before, the glowing pink was the star here, so I used a regular pink followed by a fluorescent red to give those areas a really hot Barbie glow. For areas like the gun, I painted the node back to white to make it look like it'd burn you if you touched it. I was about done here, but just for fun, I took a Gunpla decal and applied it onto the back of his helmet. 1:144 scale decals are maybe a little too tiny for minis, but they look cool, so whatever. Side note, I am very happy to be seeing the cross-pollination between mini painting and Plamo communities right now. Both groups have lots to learn from each other, and also, Gundam lets you fulfill the power fantasy of contracting mental illness from a robot while white women try to kill you. For the Ava-inspired model, I base-coated entirely in purple, blocked in the periwinkle, hate that fucking name by the way, Reddit-ass color name, and then black. For the orange, I undercoated white first because it'd look terrible otherwise, and then laid that down. The green I expected to be an absolute nightmare, but I started with the AP Fanatic mid-tone green, which thankfully hit opacity pretty quick. I mixed in some lime green until I was going straight lime. My feeble cell phone camera unfortunately cannot comprehend the power of bright colors, so lots of the footage and parts here come out super washed. Saws. I used another Tattered Angels wash, this time a blue, futzed around with edge highlights, and it was around this moment I realized I think purple might be my weakest color. I don't know why, but this is like the 3rd purple guy I've painted in the past year who I'm still not all that happy with. Not bad for proof of concept, just gonna need to experiment more before I try this combo again. Final Tau up, I mixed up a coral green and then set about the most important parts, the head and backpack. Painting straight scarlet onto coral green would make me want to burst into treats, so instead I used a dark brick red and then added subsequent layers of scarlet until I was using straight scarlet. Then once again using a fluorescent paint, this time fluorescent orange, to punch up the brightness. I find myself using fluorescent paints a lot like this lately as a sort of intensifier for certain colors. The backpack on red, I mean the guy, not the color, is a different shade of red than his head, so I painted this unit's backpack accordingly. Then I desaturated that coral green on my wet palette down to a gray, blocked in those areas, and prepared to lay down some neon yellow. Like with the orange on the Ava 01, I undercoated white and painstakingly drew on the lines before slapping a mix of fluorescent green and lime over those areas. Once more, my little cuck phone camera fails to meaningfully record it. I hope one day you'll all be able to forgive me. In the spirit of Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, I wanted to give cell shade style painting another crack. Returning viewers know of my love-hate relationship seeing this on 3D objects, but I hope maybe I can convince myself to like it if I keep doing it enough. I used Black Templar contrast paint to blackline everything, then I got out my freaky brush pen. Brent Goobertown did a video last month demoing the new Army Painter speed paint markers, ostensibly just speed paints in watercolor markers. While I mainly use speed paints as glazes, I thought the hard-tipped markers might be really good for sharp, cartoonish shadows. In classic Apollo Geist fashion, I thought I could do it myself. I bought some empty markers from the craft store, opened a bottle of turquoise ink, and
that's what I expected.
I'm okay. I added a mixture of ink, matte medium, and water, and then realized these markers weren't markers at all, but brushes. I shrugged and tried to use it to shade the model, and it looks fine, but definitely not what I meant to do. Was this a waste of time? Yes. Did I learn anything from this? No. But with that, the most lopsided crossover team you've ever seen is done. Let's roll the money shot.
End result.
This was a fun exercise in color scheming, and I hope you guys got some ideas out of it. If anyone wants, you have my full permission to steal my stolen color schemes for yourself. I've said this before, but at the end of the day, these are minis you bought with your hard-earned money. Your color choices are no less right than the established canon. D&D, 40k, and most tabletop miniature games were made by its creators lovingly pilfering from things they adore. If you feel inspiration coming from things you love, let it happen. Be inspired. Art without inspiration is just work. And we all work too goddamn much nowadays. Y'all stay safe. Peace.